Morning, Austin.
Hey, Dad, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about our guest this week. It's going to be fun to share some time with him and just share life. And today, our journey takes us to Oklahoma as we sit down with our second head basketball coach. His resume speaks for itself: 395 wins, a 79% winning percentage, two-time NAIA national champion, two-time national coach of the year, and his ability to merge high performance success and mission driven ministry. But this is a story about one man's journey against all hope. My name is Ken Karcher. I'll be your host. Alongside me today is my son, Austin, and we'd like to welcome Donnie Bostwick as our guest to awaken kingdom culture where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. Welcome, Donnie.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Ken.
We're so
Awesome.
excited to have you. And Donnie, let's jump back to when you were just a little guy growing up in the Bostwick home. I think, if I'm correct, it was again in Oklahoma. And tell us about family, mom, dad, if you had siblings.
Yeah, small town. We actually call Pryor Creek is what people around Pryor would say, and it's Pryor. My wife is like, it's Pryor. I'm like, nah, it's pretty sure it's Pryor. Um, Small town, 6 or 7 thousand at the time. Now it's got a Google plant and growing and everything else. But we grew up in what would probably say the poor side of town. My mom and dad, very very good people, but they had um, both amazing stories that kind of, if I told you just a little bit about them, you'd probably ask, how am I here today? My dad's father was an original Navy SEAL in World War II, frogman. But whenever he came home, his mom had found somebody else. And so his dad left, went to Washington State. He didn't meet his dad till he was 40. If you've
Wow.
seen the movie Secondhand Lion, that was kind of my father.
Hmm.
Ended up living with his high school coach at age 15. And um, everybody I know on his side of the family actually ended up in prison, or, I don't know much about them. So besides my grandpa, who I met later on. Um, and so my mother, her dad was a moonshiner, lived back in the sticks. If you want to say, go back about 3 or 4 gravel roads back past a couple bridges, and you would find his still in my house. My grandpa, my mom, her job as a little girl was to take the moonshine to the hogs if the Fed showed up. So
Wow.
uh, how am I here today, right? My grandpa went to prison, so my my mom and her 3 brothers were kind of like the Dukes of Hazzard. Good old people who had a good time, a little ornery. My mom was working at a pizza drive-in, roller skates, bringing drink out to my dad, who was in a '55 Chevy. And they, obviously met each other and fell in love and got married. And uh, he, they were a little ornery at the time. But whenever my sister was born before me, she's a year and a half older than I was born, and my mom had a radical encounter with Christ Jesus, and just changed her life completely. And she started taking us to church every time the doors were open. And my dad was a good man. He was working construction. He was a bricklayer and worked really hard. But like on Sunday night, back then it was cartoons on Saturday mornings. Everybody went outside and played all the time. You rode your bike across town, even think twice. But on Sunday, Sunday night, it was time to go to church, and Disney would come on. And my dad would be sitting there watching The Wonderful World of Disney and Tinker Bell doing her thing. And I'm like, I want to stay and watch this. My mom would be like, get in the car. But I didn't realize that my dad was trying to make extra money for the family. So he was going down to the pool hall and playing pool and sports gambling. And um, he was a real quiet man. He's like Clint Eastwood, really, really tough man. Uh, and he got behind. His bookie called and told him that he took him actually down to a town called Muskogee, Oklahoma. Okie from Muskogee, if you've ever heard that
Yeah.
old song. And showed him a house he blew up and said, "You're next if you don't pay." And he told my mom that you're going to have to take the kids and leave. I can't pay the debt. And my mom had radical faith, and she's like, well, I'll tell you what, you're going to actually know there's a God, because he's going to show up. And the bookie calls on a Wednesday night. I heard my dad tell this story one time in a men's fellowship. And like I said, really quiet man, but I heard him tell this story once, and my mom validated it. And the bookie called. It was like a Wednesday night, I guess. And He asked the bookie, hey, I've got 2 kids. Could I get more time? Is there any way that you could just give me a little more time? And the bookie said no. And, the power of the pause, there's that pause. I can't imagine being in my dad's shoes at that moment. But the bookie, after the pause, said, no, because my wife drugged me to a revival. I got saved and your debt's been paid. And my dad walked
What?
to church with us that next Sunday, went up and gave his life to Christ. And, a couple years later, he's running the men's basketball league and I'm running the clock. And every time out, I'm in making layups on, by 5th grade, I'm playing on the church league team. And every day of the week we were at a softball field. My dad was really, really a good athlete, loved playing sports. And so he ran the men's league and the church league and everything else. And he actually, Johnny Ray played professional baseball with the Pirates, and he was a local guy. And he sponsored my dad's softball team. They actually got 5th in the country and went to the Astrodome. And I mean, I remember being behind the fence catching like 30 home runs in a row at one point. Like my dad would give me a sign because you hit your own ball. If the ball was really, really hard, he knew it was illegal. And so he would tell me, give me a sign. If it goes over the fence, I'm supposed to get rid of the ball so the other team can't get it back. So that was kind of my story. Nobody ever came from Pryor, small, on my side of town to go to college or to play college basketball. So that dream I had to do that was birthed in that church league, and then going to basketball camps as a kid and wanting to be like a Dan Hayes or a Bob Hoffman at Oklahoma Christian, Oklahoma Baptist, those camps. And I was just like, man, I want to be one of these guys someday and use basketball, to spread the gospel. And so, I was so skinny and so little and smallest guy on my team in 8th grade. My dad's about 6 foot tall. And I prayed to my mom, tell her I want to be 6'5", because I want to play college basketball. And I think the problem was my neck just kept growing. Everything else kind of stayed the same. But I reached 6'5", and I got size 9 feet, little hands. But I ended up being a top 10 player in the state and going to go play college basketball and played NEIA basketball, won a national championship, All-American at John Brown University, and then went on to reach my dream. I thought I'd reach my dream coaching high school basketball. I met my wife at college, another amazing lady like my mother that loved Jesus. And so, I'm like living a dream. And I'm head coach of Veneta High School Class 4A, and year 2 we're in the state championship. So, that's kind of where that journey began.
Donnie, when you think back to your childhood, do you have a specific childhood memory that just jumps out at you?
Funny, because I had a friend. I do camps all over the place, and last year I did a camp, and sometimes those people will text me and ask me questions about, this lady, she's a real sweet lady. She texted me and said that her daughter's struggling with getting bullied, and she's asking for prayer because it's just a sweet little girl. And, I got bullied on the poor side of town all the time. I didn't understand why, my sister could beat them all up for me, but you get into junior high, and it's just like, why? And I had this one kid one time walking down the hall, he kind of slapped me and he's like, turn the other cheek, I'll slap it too. And I was like, did that just Satan just say that, because it says turn the other cheek. And I'm like, I didn't understand. But after the end of the day, I realize now looking back that God was always with me. There was a guy named like Sean Armstrong who came and saved me one time. A guy named Scotty Large. I mean, even the names are just a joke. And all of that time I went through that bullying, it was preparing me. I would have never been tough enough to make it to my dream in college basketball and everything if I hadn't been through all of that. And so I was able to tell her, hey, whenever I moved my family to Oklahoma Wesleyan, my son, I was never going to let him get bullied. And it was like he'd been in the same school and he's up to 6th grade. So now we moved, 10 years in the same place. And now he's kind of struggling a little bit. I hear him in the other room kind of crying. And I'm getting a little upset because I didn't get the job I thought I was going to get. I ended up at Oklahoma Wesleyan. And now I trusted God until that happened. And now I'm mad because my son's crying. And I'm like, come on, God, like, this is not right, And I really felt like God told me, when are you going to let me, or when are you going to let him lean on me instead of you always taking up for him and helping him? Like, he needs to learn to lean on me like you did back in the day. And so I had to back up and just watch my son learn to trust God. He was safe,
Mm.
but I was just not wanting him to go through any of that. And I was really handicapping him.
Mm.
What, when you think back to your home, did you ever talk about success, and how was that defined in your home, Donnie?
Very competitive. My dad, like I said, very competitive person. I don't know how it was for you, Austin, but I'd come home from a game having about 30 and win by 20. And my dad would be like, "How did you blow that 2 free throws in that layup?" And that was all he would say. And I'm like, "Golly, come on, Pops. Like, good job. Give me one of those, just." And I didn't understand why and what he was doing, but he always told me later on that I could never help you. I wasn't a man in high places who could get you a job or get you this. I could teach you how to work hard. And your mom could teach you great faith. And those things can do things that we can't do for you. And so he set the bar so high for me. And, he didn't tell me he was proud of me until after I graduated college, and he wrote it in a note. I will say there's a funny story. He told me one time he was proud of me. We were fishing, and I was like 10 maybe, and we had an old boat, an old Chevy pickup, like a 68 on the column with a clutch. I didn't even know what that was, right? And my dad, "You need to hold your foot on this brake while I load the boat." So I've been playing in the water. I'm holding my foot on the brake as hard as I can, and it slips off. And so my dad's got the boat just getting tied to the trailer, and we're rolling into the water. And now I'm pushing as hard as I can, but I'm pushing the clutch. And the back of the truck is starting to float. He's jumped out. He swims up there, throws me out of the truck. And he goes, "Go get those," because the truck's floating, the back of it. And he goes, "Go get those big old swimmers over there, those Indians," because I'm Indian, like I said. So I come over there. These guys come and stand on the back of the truck, get it to go down. As he's pulling out, water's pouring out of the truck. He just got this seat at the salvage. So it was like a new seat, but it wasn't new. And he says, "Boy, I sure am proud of you," right in front of those guys, and honestly, he could have said anything except that, because he was kind of tongue in cheek at the time. But, I never got my dad. I didn't miss a day of school till 7th grade. I didn't understand, I guess I didn't get sick, but mom and dad worked, and dad basically said, "If I'm going to work, you're going to school, son. You got to outwork everybody." And I'm in 7th grade, and now, all the elementaries, they gave you the little certificate. Nobody even really cares. You just kind of throw it in your thing. Well, now we're at the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade student pep assembly, honors assembly. I don't get any of the awards. I'm like the dumbest kid in the smart classes, right? And it comes to the last award, is perfect attendance. And, I start giving the awards, and it's like 2-3 years, and all of a sudden they're like, "Wait a second, 7 years, never missed a day of school." And I'm like, I start walking down, and the whole gym is booing me. I'm like, "Thanks, Dad. Sure appreciate that one." The next year, I skipped school with a friend, didn't tell my parents, and went to a minor league baseball game, the Drillers. Actually caught a foul ball. I remember that. You know what? I regret that to this day, because what's wrong with showing up and working hard? And that's what my dad and my mom's faith really taught me, and it's taken me so far. And I really try to instill that in my players.
So you've kind of described your relationship with your dad. Can you tell us maybe another moment or conversation that you had with him that has stuck with you?
Like I said, he's kind of Clint Eastwood. He kind of, when you walked in the door, people would feel like he was going, "No, no, 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 no," and you hear somebody whistling, and he would just look at you, and he could talk with his eyes. He was a foreman, so he had all these bricklayers and laborers working underneath him. Many of them were very tough men coming out of prison and this and that. And I just was amazed how he could just look at somebody. At the same time, they knew he loved them, and he would give them a chance that nobody else would give them. And if I would say anything with my father, it'd probably be he was riddled with cancer, and we're sitting there, and Mom had went to church, so I went over to spend the day with him so Mom could go to church. And we're watching Secretariat, and the song "Oh Happy Days" playing as he's coming around the corner, and we had watched a couple sermons that day. And whenever that movie was over, he said, "Son, you're going to have to be strong and courageous." And we'd watched a message about Joshua, and God telling Joshua 3 times you have to be strong and courageous. And I was like, Dad, you're not going nowhere. What are you telling me that for? You're going to get healed. And flash forward to the day I'm by his bed, and I'm having to pick him up off the bed, put him in the bathroom, things like that. My dad was he was doing 100 push-ups, at 65, like it was nothing. So a year later, he's so thin and everything else because of cancer, and his hands are still the only thing strong because those were bricklaying hands. And I go over by his bed because it's like 2 a.m. It's lightning storm outside. He'd been over there, 4 or 5 days, and nothing was working in the hospital. And I get a call from my wife. My son's appendix just burst. I'm like, it's storming outside. God, are you kidding me? Like, why? What is going on? And my dad hadn't said anything much the whole day. And he's like, come here, boy. And I walk over by him. I put my hand on his hand. Like I said, that last thing strong left over. And he's like, go see your boy. You're going to have to be strong and courageous, son. And the last word he told me says, you have to be strong and courageous. Go see your boy. And I drove through a lightning storm, got to the hospital. It was about an hour and a half drive, and my son was okay. I go out, and it had been a dry season where I hadn't heard from God. I'm like, where are you at? Because the year before that, we won 39 consecutive games. I was NAIA National Coach of the Year twice in a row. My dad got to be a part of all of that, cut the nets down, go to Detroit, sit there on the stage with all the famous coaches and everything else. And now I'm sitting there looking at my father, in bed, and he's telling me that. And it's dry. And I'm like, why are you not talking, God? Where are you at? I've seen you do crazy miracles, and now nothing. And I turned the radio on, and at that moment, like, God poured out, and it just rained. And I knew at that moment my dad was being healed. It wasn't exactly like the way I hoped, but I knew God was calling him home. My mom called at that moment saying, Dad's going home. And I said, I know. And it was a peace I can't explain. I went and picked up my team because we were headed to the national tournament. I mean, I left, went and got my kids, got my team, drove to by Joplin on the way, went up to see my dad because my sister and them, and there was a chaplain there and wanted to pray over him. And I went to stand by my dad in the same place I had before, and I went to touch his hand. And now it's the softest thing I've ever touched. And I'm like, Dad's not here. Why are we doing this? He's in heaven. And so I take my team to the national tournament. There's a banquet. And the Christian coaches out of the 32 teams get together, and I have all these Hall of Famers that are like my heroes and stuff in that. And now I've joined them as a national champion and stuff too. But all I could think about was like, my dad, I was asking after that time we watched the Secretary, I said, is there a bucket list, Dad? Is there anything I can do, to fulfill your bucket list? And he's like, son, no. He goes, I just want to go to one more national tournament, which is a week away, and go fishing with the grandkids one more time. Or, one more, I'm like, it was 2 weeks away. And I ordered a pontoon boat to fish the next weekend, and then we're going to the national tournament. And 3 days later, he couldn't get through dialysis, and he had to go to the hospital. So I'm sitting there with those coaches going like, why couldn't you just wait until the bucket list, God? We could have waited 2 weeks. And it kept going around to the coaches. Everybody's telling what happened with their teams that year. And everybody knows exactly what I'm going through. And it gets to the guy next to me, and God goes, he's been up here fishing with my fisherman, the best fisherman that ever lived. And he's going to be in the best seat tomorrow night for your game. And I was just like, oh, wow. True story. We're like the 4 seed out of 32. We're down 3 with like 7 seconds left. And my All-American future player of the year is going to throw the ball, 2-time player of the year, going to throw the ball to another player of the year. And he goes to run out the baseline and throws it out of bounds. And I'm sitting there going, God, you said he's got the best seat in the house for this? Like, we're going to get upset? And my dad, like, I don't know how you are, but my dad, he would be like, don't be stupid, son. He's always, I said, why'd you call me stupid? He's like, no, what you did was stupid, And I heard him say, don't be stupid, son, call timeout. And I'm like, timeout, And the guys are coming over. There's like 8 seconds left or 7. And I'm like, okay, they're going to try to throw it long. We're going to steal it. We're going to hit a 3, go overtime, win this thing. And I'm like, God, this is crazy. They line up, they go to center point guard long. Dominique Rambo jumps up, steals it, throws it to Saudi Hill Rojas going the other way. And I'm sitting there going like, yes, this is going to happen. Sadiel, like he won a D League champ. He had 38-18 in a D League game. He just retired his jersey in the Euro. Okay. He's going to go in and dunk it instead of hit the three. And I'm like, we're going to lose the game, and he's going to get a dunk in his career. What is this stupid? My goodness, God. Well, he misses because the guy that's back kind of gets out of the way, and he goes to dunk it, kind of finger rolls it, and misses it, hits the back of the rim, and the guy tries to rebound it. My guy jumps up, tips it in, and gets fouled at the buzzer. It's Larry Bird steals it, hits DJ, and one. We win in overtime.
Wow.
And I'm like, what just happened? Al Waller is the AD at College of the Ozarks, a longtime Hall of Fame coach. His son had passed away and hit by a drunk driver that year, and I went to his funeral. Well, I go into the coach's refreshment area after the game, and Al's crying. And he goes, come here, Donnie. And he goes, this morning I told God if he didn't show up today, I'm done. And he says, I've never seen God show up in a bigger way. And I was just like, wow. God, did you do all that just for Al? Because God is just that way. I mean, he's shown himself so mightily over and over in my life. So, that's just another example, I guess, of, how mighty and powerful he is.
Well, thank you for sharing that. When you think back about your father and your relationship with him, and then even like that story you just kind of told us, how did that help shape your perspective and view of God?
My name's Bostwick, and my dad was a natural boss. But at the same time, a natural leader. When I watched him coach men, because whether he was coaching basketball, and these are really, really talented men, he had this ability to be very honest and very he did it in a way that was strong, but it wasn't in a way that was ever demeaning or anything like that. And they would just listen to him. And I really believe God, has the same amazing authority that he gives us, and that discipline, disciples discipline. So many times we want to hear, you love us, but we don't really think love is discipline. And it's not details. And honestly, details is where Jesus is found. You can't see God unless you look into the details.
Amen.
People say like, hey, how do you hear God? How do you see God? And I'm like, how do you not? Like, what are you looking out the window? And how do you not see him? How do you not hear him? But like, that's us. Like, I think when Jesus said, I came to heal the blind, he's more talking probably spiritually than he is physically. Because we just don't see what God, I mean, you go to a third world country and they know demonic activity. I mean, it's easy to see is some people's eyes are straight white and just demonically, you come to America and they're like, hey, give them medicine and put them in an insane asylum instead of cast demons out of them. Even though we're told to fight the demonic battle, if you win the spiritual battle, that's always where you have to win before you win a physical battle. Yeah. My dad wasn't the spiritual leader of my home. My mom was. Like I said, mom was, a woman she finished school in like 8th grade, but then she went on to, be taught for class in Bible school years later, which is just insane. Ain't is a normal word in our home. So I'm not very articulate, but my wife is, thank the Lord for my kids' sake. But my dad, he didn't say a lot, but when he said something, it was really, everybody listened. But my wife's dream, because I didn't realize it, I went to church every time the doors were open. Man, I lived a pretty good life. I believed in everything else, but to be honest, I didn't read my Bible because I don't like to read. I'm not very good at reading. I didn't fast ever. I can't sing, so I wasn't much of a worshiper. I drove the church bus, and I thought that's all American right there. I'm giving up my Sunday afternoon for football to drive a church bus, and I go every time the doors are open, and I listen to my Sunday school teacher, and they were just feeding me like I'm still 3 years old. I never fed myself. And my wife's dream was that I would become the spiritual leader of my home. I didn't even know that. And I'm 30 years old, and a friend of mine has a brain aneurysm. And I'm actually, after my game, it's like December 31st, in my office sitting there. And I get a call about him. He's 30 years old. He married Miss Oklahoma. He's got everything, oozes God in just the most powerful way. And he's like, he's going to die. The brain aneurysm, it clotted, so he's not dead yet, but no doctors will even touch him because of the location of it. And I'm gonna stop that and then rewind for a second. He was assistant coach at Oklahoma Baptist University. The year before, we're in the national tournament. We were the last team to get in. It was, I sent the guys home. Our coach and I did, because it didn't look like we were going to make it. All the teams, every team had to win the conference tournament, or we were out. So we were like, go ahead. It's probably not going to happen. And then I find out, boom, boom. I'm listening and following. I have to call a janitor like at 1:00 a.m. in California to find out who won, to see if we're in or not. And we get in. I have to call the team back from spring break. And we head to the tournament in 32-team banquet. We walk into that banquet, and we've been trying to get in. We couldn't get in. You're just always on the bubble, and we couldn't get in. And we walk in, and KJ comes running up to me, and he's like, "Donnie B, what's up, boy?" This oozing God. And I'm like, "Man, I got my dancing shoes on. I don't know how long we're going to last, And he's like, "What are you talking about? I've watched God since I was a player. I watched God in you. You're probably going to win this thing." And I'm like, "Just keep talking. Keep talking." And truth be known, like, we won 5 straight and won it. He leaves a voicemail on my answer machine afterwards, and I kept it to this day. Well, that's in March. December 31st, I get that call. He's going to die. And I'm just like, I'm mad. And I'm like, I hung the phone up, and I'm just yelling at guy, like, "Why did you let this happen? I deserve this. This guy oozes you all day long." And I heard God, because I come from a fighting family. My grandpa was a Navy SEAL. My mom and dad, my mom, they're ornery. She held a gun while her brothers cleared the bar for fun. It was just, it's in my blood, right? And I'm sitting there, and God tells me, "Then fight." I knew what it looked like, because my mom would be on her knees every day when I was a kid praying for my dad. And I said, "Man, I'm in." Because when God says get in the game, okay, when your coach says get in the game, what do? You don't hesitate. You're pumped.
Right.
God says get in the game. Go mission trip somewhere, raise $3,000. You're like, I don't know if I got that kind of time or money right now, God. That's me. And yeah. I've done that a whole bunch. I can't sing. I don't want to talk to that person. I don't even know that person. And so he said, fight. And I was like, I'm in. I'm all in. And I started fasting, reading my Bible, praying in my truck till like 2 in the morning. And I said, I knew if I did this, KJ would miraculously somehow make it. And true story, one doctor in the United States, in San Francisco, that would even touch him, and had to fly him into a low compression plane. They said he was dead multiple times, going to be a vegetable, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's December 31st till Valentine's Day. Now he's coming home. He's going to be more normal than me, which is not real normal, but he's coming home, right? And I tell Coach, I walk into Coach's office. Now, I played for Coach, went back to be his assistant for 10 years, won a national championship as a player and assistant coach. And, the 13 to 18 years of my life, another one of my father figures, and helped raise his kids and stuff like that. And I tell Coach, "Hey, I'm going to go over to Oklahoma Christian tonight and meet you guys at the game, because KJ's coming home and I want to see him." He goes, "Sit down, Donnie." I'm like, "Okay, what's up, Coach?" And he goes, "I know you're not going to understand this. I know the plan was for you to be the next head coach and stuff, but his son was at Texas State, and a great guy, and the whole staff, Dennis Nutt got fired, and the whole staff did. And he says, I'm going to retire. I'm going to help my son get this job." Now, a natural, if it would have been 2 months earlier where I was on cloud 9 with God, I don't know what I'd have done, because I'd sacrificed a lot for 10 years to try to get that job. And I'd interviewed at 50 jobs and never always came up second or third. And I thought everything was banking on that job. Well, it was like a bullet just went right by my head. God said, I got something. I'm gonna make something out of nothing, and didn't make no sense. But I was okay with it. My wife wasn't. She was pretty frustrated and everything else. But he kind of told her the same thing. I had interviewed. This is 2005. Okay, 2004. I had interviewed at Oklahoma Wesleyan. At the time, that's where I'm at now. Okay, At the time, there were 150 students. They were about to close the doors. They just had got a new president. I went over and interviewed. They had no budget, no scholarships. We're pulling out of there. My wife says, "This is the worst job in America. They don't have mold to put in the flower beds, honey. We'll never come here." That's exactly the truth. We go back and win the national championship at John Brown, and now I don't have a job. And a buddy buys me a timeshare in Branson, Missouri, and says, "Just get out of town, Donnie." And I go, and my wife, we're driving down our little minivan, and my wife's 4 kids, and she's like, and here's a true story too. My second son was born in 2005. Okay, my first son was born 8 years earlier. We were told we couldn't have kids, had 2 miscarriages. All right. My first son was born August 31st. We went to the state championship. 2 daughters born. 2005, my second son's born. Same birthday, August 31st. We prayed for blonde hair, blue-eyed, left-handed, chubby cheeks, straight to a T. Because when we told we couldn't have kids, we wrote it down. You know, our vine will be fruitful, could be full, and all that. Well, that all happened in 2005. All of it. All right. So now I don't have a job. I go to Branson. I have a former player that played for me in high school, was an Oklahoma Wesleyan player, and now he's got a car lot, you know, $100,000 job. But he's at the tournament, the national tournament, NEI tournament. He calls me and he goes, hey, coach, man, Donnie. He goes, "I had a dream last night. It's crazy. You took the Oklahoma Wesleyan job. I become your assistant. We won the national championship year 2. I laughed at him. I said, "Bro, we just have full scholarships, and it was a miracle we won it. Dude, I can't walk on water. You're crazy." You know, and he's like, "Hey, I have a $100,000 job. I'm not going to work for you anyway. I just told you the dream." I get a call an hour later, Oklahoma Wesleyan's open, and they offer me the job. My wife's like, "No, you know, you're commuting from Siloam Springs, Arkansas. I'm not going, you know, this is crazy." And I'm like, "Babe, something out of nothing." And she goes, "That's less than nothing. That doesn't even count." Honest to goodness, I take the job. My buddy Mark, his wife takes the vice president of finance. He becomes my assistant year 2, and we win the national championship, win 39 consecutive games. Guy went crazy. My dad got to, like I said, travel around, do all that stuff. And you can't make that up. I mean, God, and he told me this: "You can never let me drop below 50%. And I'm like, "I'm going to have to work harder." And he's like, "I'm just telling you, it's all you. If you let me, you know, below 50%. And he gives me 10 biblical principles to apply. And it made no sense. I mean, how do you do less and he does more? And it just doesn't work. I mean, it's impossible, but I knew I had no shot without it. And the 2 players we had on scholarship, they were both NEI and National Players of the Year professionals. And God brought them in. Nobody recruited them. I mean, it's insane.
Wow. Donnie, just sitting and listening to you over this time, the question that I want to ask you is, when do you remember the first time you heard from God? And how did you begin to become more aware or awaken, or whatever word you want to use to describe that that growth in that relationship? Because it seems like you're constantly in conversation with him in the midst of your life.
Wow. As I said, my mom drugged me to tent revivals and camp meetings and Kenneth Hagin crusades and everything else. So I was baptized pretty heavy as a kid when it comes just to seeing what God could do. And, you know, I mean, here's a crazy story. You know, I believed as a little kid God could do anything. His mom would say it. She'd pray for me. I knew I was going to be healed, right? Well, I get to high school now. I'm, you know, at that age where I'm starting to try to figure out my own faith and everything. And I'm about, say, I think it's about 3 weeks out of I'm going to go to junior college to play in Colorado. And this big old huge seed wart comes up on the bottom of the center of my foot. And it's growing. It's like almost the size of a quarter. And I can't hardly walk on my foot. So we go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "We're going to have to cut that out, and you're going to have to be off of it for about 2 months." I'm like, I won't even make the team. Like, no, that's not optional. We were going to a little bitty church in Salina, Oklahoma, probably 100 people. And the average age probably 80. And they were having this guest speaker come through, and my mom, I always went, to honor her more than anything else. But I was like, I'm going to go up front. I'm going to let her pray for it. And I'm going to believe it's going to be gone because I need this miracle so bad. I'm going to be like I was when I was a little kid. And this is crazy, true story. This guy had like a toupee on, looked like Elvis, and he's up there and I'm listening, and I'm just waiting until he gets to the end so he can pray for somebody, right? And he's like finally done. And he's like, hey, if anybody needs to be prayed for, come on up here, I'm not going to limp or anything else. I'm going to go up there and get prayed for, and I'm going to get out of there, And I'm walking up there, and the guy looks at me and goes, you got a wart on your foot, huh? And I'm like, okay, how did this happen? He goes, tell you what you're going to do. You're going to pray with me, and then you're going to leave that sock on for 3 days. And God's going to do a miracle. And I'm like, whatever. I'll do whatever it takes. As crazy as this sounds, I didn't know the guy. He didn't know nothing about my foot or anything. So he prayed. So I hate sleeping in socks, okay? But I said, I'm going to leave his sock on, right? I'm not kidding. The next day, that foot hurt so bad. Like I was like, what's wrong with his foot? And I wanted to take my sock off so bad. And the next day it was worse, And finally, that night, night 2, going to sleep, couldn't go to sleep because my foot's just throbbing and stuff. Well, I wake up the next morning and I forget about it because it was not hurting at all for a few minutes. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, my foot. I pick pull my sock off, turn my foot upside down, and it's a little black thing, and I touch it, just falls off. And I was like, all right, God, you're real, just like when I was a kid. And, it was just those kind of moments. But I've got to admit, like, I didn't really start talking to him until tough times. Like, we couldn't have babies with miscarriages. Wanted to hear the heartbeat twice, nothing. And because of the valleys, I feel like that's probably where I really drew close to him and learned, like I said, when I was a kid getting bullied, I had that same relationship, but I grew it. And then once I got in that quiet place, and once I learned to hear his voice, and once I learned to seek it with all my heart, it's like I know his voice, just like when he calls. I got him on my speed dial, Jesus, just for fun on my favorites, list and stuff. So
that's awesome.
When I want to talk just about some key topics with you, Donnie, that again you sort of alluded to the other night that when we talked, but these are words that are thrown around all the time. Mission. When you talk about a mission-driven culture, can you describe what that means in your organization, and just how does spiritual accountability and competitive success or demand work together?
When you said mission, there was many times I said it earlier that I didn't say yes when God called me. Obedience is no hesitation. It's not partial. It's 100% without any hesitation. Yes, sir, God. That's whatever they said. The three disciples. Let's go fishing. They hadn't caught a fish all night. Already rode up the nets. Why did they say yes? I mean, something about him, or something. They had heard a story. Who knows? They go out, and then he's like, they catch it in the shallows. I mean, I've been on that shoreline in Israel, and he says, now let's go out to the deep. I mean, I'm sure they're going like, you're a preacher. You're not a fisherman. I'm a pro. Like, what are you talking about? But they did. They went out in the deep, put their net. He said, put your nets down. Didn't catch anything. And then he goes, try the other side. Put your nets down on the other side. And the Bible actually says Peter put his net down. He didn't put the nets. He put his net down. And what happened? The nets break. The net breaks. And there's so many fish. And he has to, he doesn't believe he can do it on his own. He thinks the boat's going to sink. So he starts yelling at friends to help him. All right. Well, then later on, the same event happens, and this time Jesus had rose from the dead. Peter went back out to fishing because he was scared. They see somebody on the shore. He says, hey, are you catching any fish? And they're like, no, it ain't nothing biting, And he goes, try the other side. And they're like, John knows his voice. John had his heartbeat. It's the beloved's like, that's Jesus. Peter jumps in the water after him, And they says they catch so many fish. This time they don't call into the boats. They believe they can accomplish it. The nets don't break. There's 158 or something like that fish, big fish it says, and the obedience and the ability to follow God every direction to a T. So God told me I've been at Oklahoma Wesleyan. God had won 120 and 20, won a national championship, all that. Now He's telling me to go to Texas to take a job with 15 straight losing seasons at Southwest Assemblies of God University. Opened a crazy door there, and my house wasn't sold. I hadn't signed anybody, but I already told my pastor I was going to go on my first mission trip with him to Ireland, and we raised like $2,000 to do it. And so my wife's like, we haven't got $2,000, and like we got to sell our house, and we got a car in the shop. You're not going on this mission trip. And I'm like, babe, I have to. Like, God told me I got to go on this mission trip. And so she's not happy again, making her sound like the bad guy. She's actually my rock. Okay. But I go on the mission trip. I don't have a phone. We're in a flat, which is the hood, and razor wire over the buildings. And there's these normal people, families and stuff. And I'm like, why are you here? Like, why are you down here? You must be called and everything. And they're like, oh, you don't know? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, we were all heroin addicts, but God completely restored our families, healed us and like, we are here to help them, and we're upstairs in this little building we were building and help to build their second wing of their church. And we're worshiping, and they're like me. They can't sing a lick. And they're just 100 of them hollering, for God, singing for like an hour. And then some guy preaches a little bit, and then they go do it another hour. And then they're like, hey, you ready to go? And I'm like, where are we going? And we went and got some makeshift ice cream truck and went out and fed the heroin addicts because they legalized heroin. And I'm like, I came over here to save you guys? Honestly, it was the opposite. And every time I've been on mission trips to Africa and Asia and Central America with my teams in Alaska and in the United States, like, I go there and instead it's the opposite. Like, I see and I understand where God's at. And I want to take him to across the street and the neighbor now, because I need to bring it back from where he showed me that. And so when I think mission, I think different. I don't think like everybody else. I don't believe. I think like, how can my team be a missionary? We're called the Great Commission, the mission. So that's going to be us. Every time we play, we're going to worship him on the court in such a way, and we're going to do it with such power. Like there's a line, the word meek in the Bible means power under control. It's not soft.
Are you kidding?
That's soft. Satan's lying to us. Meek milk. They start robbing the word. They put it over here, and they act like we're supposed to be these soft. I'm like, we're saved. We're not soft, right? And so power under control. And that's like timidity's a sin, anger's a sin. We're supposed to be this group that just like knocks them down, picks them up over and over and over again, smiling at them. We love you, bro. Not sticking to, telling how great we are and everything else over and over and over. So when my team, loves each other, because love never fails, and that's another principle he taught me and stuff. Like, we teach these principles, second mile principle. I know you guys know all this stuff. Like in the Old Testament, he had to go second mile because, Roman soldier, 75 pounds worth of armor. Yep. By Roman law, a Jew would have to carry it 1 mile.
And couldn't do any more than that.
And then so here's what happens. We tell our guys, go 1 mile. And then all of a sudden, what's Jesus say? No, go another mile and do it. Tell them, so they'll see me. Well, nobody wants to do that. But until you do that, the favor doesn't come.
Yeah.
But when you do it out in joy, God's favor falls on you. And then all of a sudden, it's not fair. Like, favor's not fair. A couple of years ago, it's a funny thing. My two spiritual leaders on my team, they come walking to my office, and I'm like, what's going on? I thought somebody messed up or something. They're like concerned. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, Coach, it was all about the 3 that year. And it was going to be Spirit's fire, our faith, and God's favor, because the 3 F's there. And they were like, I think we need to change favor to grace. I'm like, what? Like, why? He's like, Coach, that's prosperity gospel. I just think people are starting to think that we're better than them and stuff like that. And I'm like, I said, nah, like, I'm telling you, guys have favor to me. Like, I said, Mary was highly favored. Jesus grew in favor. There's nothing wrong with favor. Like, it's not fair. Like, we don't deserve it, but it's our Father. He wants
Yeah.
to bless us, and he does it because of our hearts, not because of, if we pray, we want to win. We're going to pray a whole bunch the night before game, so we're going to win. He knows us. That's dumb. But, like, if we truly are seeking him, oh, it's over, man. Like, we're cheating. Cheat code. Bring it on. I used to get cheat codes for my son for his video games, and that same action. We're cheat coding, man.
That's awesome.
Look at the Indiana quarterback. Cheat code. That guy's locked into Jesus, and now he's going to be the Heisman Trophy winner. Unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Last year, Ohio State's running back last year, running into the end zone, sign language, Jesus loves me. Tim Tebow. I mean, you could go over and over and over, and people are blind to seeing it. They just can't see. Unbelievable.
We just have a hard time believing that we have a God that's good and wants to give us good gifts. And, once again, we have a hard time seeing it because we want it to look the way we want it to look. But just listening to your story, so many times he's had so many great things show up when you kind of let your guard down and said, okay, God, like, let's go. And then he shows you something better than you ever thought. And that's the kind of Father we have. But we believe we've almost gone the other end of the extreme where, he don't want any good for us. He just wants us to, not to say that suffering and pain isn't part of the process, but we think that's where he stops.
James 1:2 is my favorite verse. Consider adversity pure joy. They put him on a cross. And what are you going to do to us? I mean, we're going to suffer for his sake. But it's not a situation that you don't go to James 1:12. You put one in the middle. And when you endure, you win the prize.
Right.
And it's just like straight up God telling you that. John 3:16. Everybody loves it. Whenever Tim Tebow put it on here, and it's an incredible story, passed for 316 yards, all that kind of stuff. Well, John then still had all his disciple buddies around. Go to Revelations 3:16. Same author. What does it say? It's a tough one, right? If you're lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Nobody writes that under here. And it's about that. And like, he's trying to tell you, like, get off the fence. It's all in or not in. Come on now. You want to reap the reward on earth because this is as in heaven as on earth. Like he's telling you, this is ask. Nobody's asking. We have not because we ask not. And I'm like, we're asking God, like, all you want is your favor because we will use it for your glory. We don't want the glory. Less of me, more of you. And like when you truly come to that point and you are that way, then favor falls. And, Psalms 23, everybody loves that one. My mom, $10. I learned that one, 91st Psalms for $10. I memorized them as a kid. They just never left me. But Psalms 23, you go through the valley, right, of the shadow of death. It's a shadow. And, what is Psalms 24? Once you get through that valley, now it says, swing wide, you heavenly gates. It's a song that David wrote to go into the temple. The King of Glory is coming in. So you got to get through the valley and you got to keep going. And that valley leads to another mountaintop. I heard a little girl, she's probably 7 years old in kids' church, walked up to me and goes, you know what the tallest mountain in the world is? I'm like, I think I might have saw it. I think I've been to, I've been over to Bhutan and in the Himalayas. So I think, she's like, no, it's in Hawaii. Hawaii? Yeah, because it's underwater. The tallest mountain, you're just seeing the tip of it because it goes down so far. It's not the highest, but it's the tallest. I'm like, wow. The eyes of a little girl coming from the mouth of babes. What we don't see is really truly what if we could only like get a glimpse, like, Elijah said to, just let him see for a second. And we just don't see, I read a book called This Present Darkness as a young man in high school. And it was a game changer for me. It was really to see this
by Neil Anderson, right?
Oh my goodness. And now, that's my favorite genre is reading books about the spiritual, supernatural world, like Case for Miracles, Case for Christ. How do you not believe there's a God if you read that? I mean, you'd have to be an idiot actually not believe it. I mean, it's the truth.
Well, I hope you're enjoying our podcast today, but I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsors. Our nonprofit organization, The Win Awakening, is the reason we're able to have this podcast. The Win Awakening is a sports ministry network that began in November of 2022. The Win mission is to encourage and empower leaders to live from a place of victory as they awaken to their wholeness and true identity within environments where they can be known. Our goal is to create safe environments where transparency and vulnerability are accepted, and value and worth are recognized in an atmosphere of love. If you'd like to support the Win Awakening, as well as our podcast, you can donate now at winawakening.org, and please spread the word about our ministry with your friends. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to Awaken Kingdom Culture on our Spotify and YouTube channels to listen or watch our podcast weekly, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to follow my socials, as well as hear about the upcoming podcast news, watch the latest clips, and get an inside look at my life behind the scenes, you can follow us on Instagram at Awaken Kingdom Culture and Facebook, Awaken Kingdom Culture Podcast. Well, let's get back to the podcast.
Well, I'm just speaking for me. I mean, God's all over this conversation. There's been a couple of things in our lives that have been part of our conversation or upcoming events that, are near and dear to us. And you're spitting them out right now. And I'm like, this has got to be from God. The first one is, meek. We've been talking about meek is strength under control. And it's very, for you to bring that up, which I've never heard that before until, we were started talking about it a few weeks ago. And then for you to bring that up, that's amazing. We're putting on a event here in Mobile where I live called On Earth as It Is in Heaven, like you just talked about. And then you were just talking about, Psalm 23, which at the last event we did, God put on my heart to talk about Psalm 23, how in sports so much of the time we talk about the one side of the coin. We talk about trying to get to that peak, the peak of the mountain. And, we focus on doing, if I do all the right things, I'm going to get to that peak. But you realize that the peak, it's naturally the reason why it's a peak. There's a very small surface area for someone to get up there. And so much of this ministry is for all the people that can't quite make that peak, because on that journey that we tell everyone to go after, they realize that, that you fall into the valley. And, one of the things God put on my heart is so much of what we're trying to do in the ministry is to meet God where he is in the valley and walking with people so that they can strive for the next peak. And, so for you to talk, and I was using Psalm 23, and I was talking about how, you have to walk through the valley of the shadow of death to get to the green pastures that he wants us to lie down in the still waters. And so for you to mention those three things is such a God thing to me.
I can tell you a funny story. So, year before last, I think, we were going to have a must-win game up in a school up in Kansas. I won't even say the name of the school right now, but I knew it was going to be a super tough game, and I was praying hard about it and fasting and stuff. And I was like, God, what am I supposed to do? The foolish. Most people would say are foolish. I honestly I'm going to err on the side of God. Like if I think I heard from him, I'm going with it. So, he set a table before your enemies right in the middle of the battle.
Mm.
So he says, I want you to get the best fruit you can ever imagine. I got watermelon, pineapple, blackberries, Gatorade. All right. And I put it in this ice chest, and nobody knows what it is. I just roll it with me to the game. And he says, no matter the score, as soon as the halftime's over, usually I wait, we talk about it and we go in, 7 minutes. And anyway, he goes, I want you to go in. I want you to set the table and have a celebration right in the middle of the battle, no matter what's the score. Okay. And so we're down 10. My point guard, All-American's in foul trouble. And I'm like, not feeling like going in there and doing this, right? Sorry, my wife just got home from church.
No worries.
I roll in there. They're looking at me like I'm fixing to start yelling at them, right? And I'm like, all right, guys, time to eat. And I just opened the thing and started throwing fruit and Gatorade at them. And I read Psalms 23. And then I said, and then we're going to Psalms 24 the second half, guys. We're going to go. He's going to swing wide the heavenly gates, and we're going to see Jesus and watch what he does. I think they scored it was like 57-13 at the second half. I mean,
Wow.
it was like, what just happened? And, I was trying. My players couldn't hit shots. It was last year. Year 4 again. Guys couldn't hit shots, and guys that normally could hit shots were shooting horrible from the free throw line and stuff. And I'm like, God, I got to anoint them. So I took oil, and I'm like, okay, when you walk out of the locker room, I want you just to touch my hand with the oil. We prayed over it, And one guy wouldn't want to, he didn't want to get grease on his hand. He couldn't shoot that game. He's like, great shooter. And I'm like, why didn't you just touch my hand, And I'm like, God, what can I do? And he's like, put Jesus in him. He's, so take communion. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went out and got Hawaiian sweet rolls and grape juice. And I said, Christ means anointed one. And we're going to put Christ in us. And I had a young man who's a Catholic background, and he believes that's actually Jesus' body and his blood, And we talked about the importance of that when we do this. And I'm like, yeah, we want Christ in us. It was like 35-2 to start the game. It was like, what just happened again? We've done that every game since, both of those. And, I mean, it's people would say, that's foolish. Come on. I'm like, well, my dad's name's David. My high school coach is named David. My 2 mentors are David, and their wives are Joy, Julie, and my mom's like Shirley Carol. So I know when God speaks. I know he writes, and he just got a sense of humor and stuff like that. So I study David. I love his mighty men. I read books about that. And like I said, the supernatural. And like, it's so, I mean, you want to talk tough?
Oh yeah.
Movie 300 Sesame Street compared to David. I mean, come on. It's a joke.
Well, that's where, one of the things that we've also been talking about is just so much of this thing is about mental toughness. As coaches, we use words like mental toughness, don't quit, right? Those are coaching terms. But if you think about it, they're spiritual terms. Mental toughness. I mean, Jesus was the most mentally tough person out there. He believed the truth, and regardless of everyone else around him, he was going to follow it. And I mean, that to the point of death. I mean, that's mental toughness if I've ever heard of it. And then on top of that, what was I going to say? So mental toughness. And then the second thing was, what did I just say, Dad?
I'm not sure.
Mental toughness.
Let me throw something in there real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So David, all right. I thought David was the toughest because I studied him, man. I was like, dude, that guy, Saul tried to kill him, says, go out and, bring in so many foreskins, and he like doubles it up and drops it in. And Bob, there you go. What else you need? Like, what is this guy? Like, this is insane, right? He runs, he cuts David, he cuts Goliath's head off, grabs the sword, and then runs. I've been there. It's about a 45-minute drive, okay, from the Valley of Elah. I got 5 stones on my desk from the Valley of Elah to Jerusalem, all right? So he runs from there to Jerusalem with the head and the sword, and he puts it in the ground outside the city gates. It's not even Jerusalem yet. The Bible says Jerusalem because it's prophetic. It's actually at the time still, it's not conquered yet, all right?
Yeah,
so he's like 10, 15, probably 15 years old at the time, and throws it in there, and he says, this will be the city of David. He prophesies it. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, how long, much longer? At age 30, just when Jesus became, it's all about the 3. It's always at age 30, okay? And where did he go? Where did he put it? He put it down right there. And where was Jesus crucified? Golgotha, Goliath of Gath, the place of the skull, exact place that he put the skull and the sword. There's actually a place in Israel they believe is the exact spot where Jesus was crucified, the exact same place. Like the Bible comes to a detail of and it said that the prophecy that Jesus' heel would bruise the seed, Goliath, the fallen angel, Orpah, of Satan, and it all had to come true. Every one of them came to the T, to the
Yeah.
detail, and people are still blind and can't see. It's just insanely crazy that I could be this like redneck, not very smart guy who could see it so clear, and these guys that just know Bible and prophecy and everything else, or they're smart science people and they cannot see, you know.
It's the gift of sight, those who can see and those who can't. Wow.
Well, Donnie, I know that you and I had a pretty interesting conversation. I was waiting to get to that today, and I shared with Austin that night. I was just tired that day, and I called you to confirm the podcast and just said, "Hey, share a little bit about your story." And man, we went off, and I called Austin, or actually tried to text him. It was late, and I said, "Hey, we got to talk." I just had a great conversation. And we had talked about it. Both of us had some issues. You had one with your daughter, and I have one going on with my daughter right now. And you talked about Romans 4:18 and the statement about against all hope, in hope, he believed and trusted. Speaking of Abraham, talk to us a little bit about the role of hope and how you've seen hope in your own life and for those of us as we walk through life. How does hope play a role in our life?
Well, I heard somebody say you can't have faith without hope. You can have hope without faith, but you can't have faith without hope. And so it kind of starts. If you're going to go on this journey of believing and watching something come to fruition, you got to start with hope. And the father of our hope is Abraham. And Romans 4:18 says it's the best. Against all hope. Zero. Absolutely no chance. Over 100, gonna have a kid. He'd already, tried to do it on his own, messed up. It wasn't gonna happen. Against all hope. Abraham, in hope, he still had hope. Like, against all hope, he had hope. And that's the secret to what happened. And hope, I heard the best definition ever the other day. It's a guaranteed manifestation of a promise of God. Guaranteed. It's guaranteed manifestation. We just have to have the faith to move that mountain.
Yeah.
And I understand Satan's really good about killing hope, taking all hope away. I was, like I said, I understand the power of fasting now because I didn't ever fast. And then I understand the power of fasting now in the sense of just taking apart a fleshly desire and replacing it with what you want. You could, watch movies and say, no, I'm not going to watch that. I'm going to spend some time with God. I'm going to get up at 3 a.m. and spend some time with God just because it's a special time and I want to show him I care about him today. Just take away. I say, everybody just thinks, oh, you're starving yourself and that's fasting. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. It's you dying to the flesh and replacing it with something, genuine that you want to spend time with him. I mean, his son started at age 30. God, baptized, God rends the heavens, say, this is my beloved son. Holy Spirit comes to him without measure, fulfills. Spirit leads him right into the wilderness. And he doesn't eat for 40 days. He fasts for 40 days. Like, I did 10. It about killed me. I can't imagine how weak he was. And that's when Satan went after him. And he fought him off with scripture. And then angels came and helped strengthen him. And then he leaves with the Holy Spirit and power now. And it's over for 3 years. Every miracle, more books than all the world could hold, nonstop, killing it. And so, we sit here and we try to figure out how we're supposed to battle and how we're supposed to overcome weakness and struggle and everything else that's going to be in this life because it's part of the fallen world. And Satan, as soon as you get on track, he's coming at you. And the good news is he can't win even in death. There's no sting. And so you can just smile at him and say, here's the thing. Every time you come at me, I'm going to go harder for God and win more souls. So you're an idiot. And I just tell him that to his face and come on, baby. I hate it because then he goes after my kids or my wife, somehow. And then, I'm like, okay, that's even worse. Now I'm going to go harder. You can't back me down. And I can, I got the authority. We got the DNA. We got the Father. We got the angels. We got the Holy Spirit. We're loaded, but most of us walk around doing it on our own. So I'm doing this fast before COVID. This is like December 31st before COVID. I always do a start of the year fast. And I was doing processed sugar, and I was listening to a message before I fell asleep. And I usually, what do you tithe? 10%, right? So 24 hours in a day. God says, what's more important, your time or your money? I was like, well, time for me. And he goes, well, 10% of 24 hours, 2.4 hours a day with me. Like, wow. Like that seems like a lot, And then I'm like, well, sleeping, just get it down to 16, then you're like, okay, 1.6 and maybe what is that? 45 minutes in the morning and in the evening. Like anybody could pull that off, So I'm like, I'd get up early and I'd spend time with him. I'd spend 45 minutes before I went to bed with him. Instead of watching my 4th episode of Sports Center, I would dig in the Word and I would spend time with him. And now instead of having nightmares and stupid stuff, some dumb, episode of CSI or something I watched, I'm now having dreams of God doing things and amazing stuff because who you go to bed with, who you're going to wake up with, and my spirit doesn't sleep. And I'm spending time with him. Then I get up at 3 a.m. just to spend extra time with him, and he shows up. And I've learned, you seek him, you will find him. And sometimes you got to kind of come on now, where you at? I'm waiting for you. I'll wait. I'll sing for you. I'll sing. I'll wait. And he shows up. And he just, if you don't know his voice and everything, you don't recognize, in the smallest little thing, him. But I was fasting, okay, and that message, I fell asleep. YouTube just starts flipping messages. At 3 a.m., I still got my headphones on. They're still giving messages. And I get woke up like that. I have a clock on my ceiling, so I know what time it is. And this guy's prophesying, and he's like, the world's fixing to get hit with 4 weapons from Satan: fear, anxiety, panic, and depression at a level we've never seen. And I feel like God's telling me this. I'm like, why do you want me to know this? What am I supposed to do about it? And he's like, I need you to bring my youth and stuff to a field and worship me like Elijah did. And I'll bring my freedom fire, which is my shirt, down, and I will set people free just like I did then. And I'm like, okay, I wrote all this down. He says, bring my messengers. I'm like, messengers? I wrote that down. Why would you bring messengers, right? I'm thinking artists, musicians, whatever, right? And so I'm from Pryor. Okay, the funniest thing about Pryor is there's a thing called Rocklahoma outside of Pryor. It's about 100 to 200,000 people come out and worship like the worst bands you could ever imagine. Look it up, Rocklahoma. And so I'm thinking, I'm rocking along there. It gets to February, and then all of a sudden, early March, we make the national tournament. We're in South Dakota, and all of a sudden, we just beat the defending national champions. And a guy comes up and does this afterwards. Tournament's over. COVID's here. We're gone. Fear, anxiety, panic, and depression come at a level I've never seen before. And I'm like, this is all coming true. What am I supposed to do? God said, bring my kids to a field. Well, they're cutting down all concerts and everything else. I'm like, I don't care. I'm doing this. I'll do an outside concert. I call Rocklahoma. I go over there, and I'm like, what's it cost? They won't let me do it there. And I'm like, I'm going to make you extra money the week after you do it. I'll just this is Rocklahoma for Christ. No.
Yeah.
And so I have a church friend over there that has a field next to it. And I'm like, I'm going to rent that field, bring a stage in, get electricity. And it was over 10 grand to do all that. And I'm like, 10 grand, God? I'm the artist. I got a buddy who actually knows Toby Mac, and it was 100 grand. I was like, I started looking. People never heard of artists. I mean, I like music. They wanted 20 grand. I'm like, 20 grand, God, and plus the 10. Okay, I'll do it. I don't even know where I'm gonna get this money. I'm gonna do it. And so I'm at my house, and I hear this thing about we have a new amphitheater here in town in Bartlesville, and they're gonna have an artist that was booked in Tulsa that got canceled come and do it at this amphitheater because his church picked him up. And so it was August, and I went down there. It was 100 degrees, and I'm like, there was 20 people there. The church the youth pastor who did it got COVID. None of his kids could even come. So I walk up to this field, though, amazing field, beautiful stage. I'm like, this is it. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I walk around behind, and I ask this guy running it. I'm like, hey, how much would all this cost? And he's like, oh, do you want the speakers and lights and all this stuff in the field? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, obviously COVID, about $500. I'm like, $500. let's go. So I call a friend of mine. It's a crazy story. I won't tell you that one, but like the guy, like they found oil on his land. Okay, coach. Okay, what's the odds of that, right? He sent me to Israel. Put it that way. He goes to state concerts now and goes backstage and listens, meets and he's like, I said, who would you? I don't want a concert. I want a revival. I want a move of God. Who would you get? He goes, we are messengers. I'm like, messengers. I said, dude, they had like 4 of the top 5 K hits, K-Love top 5 hits last year. I'm like, I can't afford them. He's like, dude, they're different, bro. I think maybe you should try to check them out. And I'm like, dude, I can't afford them. I didn't think God can afford them. I can't, right? So I wrote it off. I'm going to get this $2,000 group I've never heard of. Sure, people are going to show up. That's not happening, but I'm going to do it, And so I go. My son gets married in the backyard of his wife now because of COVID, and her uncle used to be our music guy at church, and he used to like do all these big, band things and stuff with Christian bands. So I was like, hey, who would you get? He goes, we are messengers. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, dude, they just play in bars for free. They used to be drug addicts and they just love Jesus. And like, just call them, give them a call. I'm like, you can't call them, you call their agent. So I called their agent, and they sent me, they were the biggest agency for all groups in the world. And so I go from like, they put me on hold and then send me to New York City and they hang up on me. I said, hey, I tried, God, I'm going back to my $2,000 group. So I get to that agent. And I'm like, hey, by chance, would you know anything about We Are Messengers? She goes, oh, you didn't hear? Yesterday, all Christian artists got dropped by that big thing. And so all of them right now don't have any agents. And I said, well, hang on. I'm going to make a phone call. So I got on the website. I saw their manager. I called the manager, secretary, and she's like, it's kind of crazy right now, I said, well, are they doing concerts? Well, they're doing them on, what's it called, virtual. And I said, well, could I talk? I think I'm supposed to have him at my concert. The manager's walking by. Let me hand the phone to him. I got this guy on there, and I'm thinking, hey, this is a story. I think I got $10,000. That's all I got, And he goes, I'll run it past him. I'm like, it's like telling a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader you're giving her your number. She's not calling back, right? I said, no way. Next morning I'm fixing to book that $2,000 group again. I get a call. They're coming. They're going to pay their way. They can't wait. I find out the drummer or there's a keyboard guy that lives 30 miles down the road. They come. Thousands of people came. I mean, I could tell you there's some crazy stories that happened down there when I went down to pray every night down there. And guy would show up. I stayed till like 2 a.m. But like I walked around this one fountain and said, God, just let me baptize one person in this fountain. 39 people, including one of my players, I baptized in that fountain that night. Like God just did God, and you're just like, nobody talked about COVID or worried about COVID or nothing, the whole thing, And so, you talk doing something that just sounds beyond what you can accomplish or just sounds almost foolish and stuff like that. Well, last time I checked, that's pretty much everybody in the Bible. Everybody, every story has, go dip into Jordan 7 times, Do you want the blessing or do you not?
Yeah.
Donnie, before we get to legacy, which we'll end up there in a second, is, something I've really appreciated about you. And if you want to just talk on it quickly for our listeners as well, you shared with me when we spoke that night about the 4th watch and the power of that and the time of that. And you have faithfully, my phone, ding, 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 the last week and a half at 3 o'clock in the morning, I got stuff from Donnie. Comment on that, and then Austin, let's go to legacy and we'll wrap up.
So I'm always trying to seek more. All right. So I'm always listening to messages, and, one thing that I just heard today, I sent a prayer to you and I didn't realize I knew Billy Graham's not saying this, so it's got to be somewhat generated AI wise and stuff.
Right.
But it was all scripture. I listened to all of it and I'm like, man. Then there was a song that came up, and whenever I was trying to post a video of my game last night, some highlights of my players on Instagram, and the song was like fire. I'm like, wow, who's that group? And then I sent it to a couple of friends, and one was like, hey, that's AI generated, man. That's an AI group. I'm like, that's like one of the top like top 25 songs right now in Christian artists are AI songs. I'm like, is this right or wrong? Is this spirit led? What is this? Should I be doing this? I apologize to like 100 people I sent the message to, like, you need to double check for yourself, Well, I had a missionary friend that God sent to me when I was in Texas, and he said, Donnie, Always, no matter what prophecy is told to you, what you feel like you heard from God, does it align with the Word of God? You better go and make sure it lines up with the Word of God, number one. And then ask for the Spirit to give you discernment. And then run it past a couple people that you trust. Because AI is going to get stronger. And I mean, you consider a lot, but when the internet started, we acted like that wasn't a big deal. What's the difference in that? You know, in Siri or everything else, it's just going to keep multiplying. And we're going to have to really keep our eyes on God. We're going to have to make sure it aligns with the Word, and we're going to have to be Spirit led, or we're going to be led astray. And it's going to be so easy because it's so realistic. I mean, it looks like a person and it sounds like an amazing song. And they could put scripture in there for a while. And all of a sudden, I heard a deal. A guy was building, he was told to build I can't remember what he's supposed to build, but it was like take so many boards that are this long and measure them out and cut them. That's all he had to do. All right. Well, he took the one board and then he measured it. And then he took the same board. He just kept drawing that line. By the time he got to the 100th board, it was 10 feet longer because of that one line. Every time he drew it, it just got longer, right? And cut it, drew it, cut it, drew it, cut it. And so we got to be so close to God that we know his voice and we don't know the Antichrist voice or, you know, the voice that's the world or Satan trying to lie to us. And can we continue to seek him with all our hearts? Well, I'm seeking with all my heart. And I run across a message that says the fourth watch. And I knew David was huge on the fourth watch. And so I love David. So I was studying the fourth watch. Well, then all of a sudden I find out almost every major miracle in the Bible, walking on water, parting the Red Sea, all happened on the fourth watch. And I'm sitting there going like, wow, what's the importance of the fourth watch? Why? And I read when I started studying it, they said that people used to wake up and spend time with God for about an hour in the middle of the night all the time. So on Farmers Wood and stuff like that, because they knew there was so much power because everything the world shuts down and you're just going to go spend time and effort. Whenever your wife, you put effort into buying her something, working, you know, doing something for her, she appreciates your effort as much as anything else. And he knows our heart. If we're going to do it and set an alarm to get up at 3 a.m. and I did it a couple times and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, like he really shows up. And then, you know, favor fell and I'm like, man, I want to do this all the time. Number one, just so I could be with him and find that time with him alone where the world just shuts down. Cause we're on our phones 24/7. We got timing, busyness. And, you know, I've learned, I got more championship rings than I can even know what to do with. They don't change nothing. I get more pressure now. When I took the team to the national tournament the first time, the whole town loaded up to follow us. Now they don't even show up till we get to the championship game, you know, because they expect it, you know, and everything else. And you're just sitting there going like, really, that peak at the top of the mountain you're talking about, when you get there, if you're there alone, it's a lonely place. I've been to Hawaii with my family. I've been to Hawaii by myself. And on that beach walking along, I'm on a FaceTime call going, look, everybody, because it was boring by myself. You know,
Yeah.
and you really have to say it's about, if we go to heaven, well, we don't have all our souls, our friends, everybody there with us. Man, that's going to be a sad moment. And I hope it's, you know, because I don't know how that's going to work for us, you know, because we had opportunities to talk to these people before we get there. And then somebody like Moses is going to say, hey, what was it like to have the Holy Spirit with you? Like, man, Jesus said you're going to do greater things than I did. What'd you do? Oh, well, I went to Sunday school. I mean, what are you going to say? I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, I think it's a challenge for all of us to say, you know, I'm 56 now. Realistically, you know, I'd like to say I'm going to live to 95 and be like a Joshua and a Caleb, but like, I don't know. My dad died at 65 and, you know, I don't know when God's going to call me, but I got so many hours left on this earth and I want to use them wisely and I want to use them to win souls because that's the only thing I'm taking to heaven.
Austin, you want to do legacy then? We'll close.
Oh, this question is going to be very difficult for you. What has been the most significant moment in your spiritual journey? And let's, you know, obviously, you know, a lot of times you hear when people get saved. What other than when you got saved?
goes back to when I was 31 and I'd been following God my whole life and realized I was a baby.
Hmm.
I'm just like, wow. I'm like, I just get fed. I don't know how to feed myself. I tell kids this. I say, okay, how long do you want to live? And they're like, yeah. I mean, I've had a kid say like 60. I was 60. Like, what are you talking about? 120 is max in the Bible, I think. And I'm like, 120 is max. Okay. Like, how long you want to live? So then they'll usually say somebody smart will say 120. And I'm like, great. So you lift weights, you eat really well all the time, and their parents are back here going, yeah, he never stops, I'm like, great. So you're physically strong. You look good, okay, great. So, how long is your physical man going to live? 120. How about your spirit man? How long is he going to live? Forever. I'm like, oh, forever. Okay. How many times a day do you feed him? Any lifting weights, any worship, any prayer, anything, is he a little skinny, scrawny dude over here that can't beat up a girl, the weeniest little girl you see or something? I'm like, whenever you get that man bigger than that man, I want to recruit you. Until then, I can win with somebody else because, like, I know your weaknesses. I'm looking at them. I can see them. I can't see what's inside you. How big that God is beside you. And I realized how soft, how weak I was as acting like a spiritual guy that drove the church bus and I was working my tail off trying to get a head coaching job. And I was getting turned down by everybody for years. I couldn't get a job. It's like second or third. I'll be like, I was too religious, wrong religion, you name it. I'm a kid, 50, 60 jobs, great jobs. I can name them, and I'd be like, God, why? But he was preparing me. He was preparing me for the time that whenever it was time, he put me on a fast track, and like, I can't explain how, we've won 80% of our games and now it's up to 500 games and wins. And like, that's not counting 250 assistant coaches and 80 high school coaching wins. And like, most of my players are guys nobody recruited, and it's just all God. And like, it's easy to see it. And people are like, what is the secret? And I'm like, it's not a defense or an offense. Yeah, we do that well. Start FCA. And they're like, no, I already got 3 jobs. What is the secret? I'm like, I just told you. Like, be an FCA leader. Do something like that's going to change lives, and God will reward that. And they're like, nah, that ain't going to work. They just walk off. They're going to go ask somebody else how to win. I'm like, well, I just told you what the secret is because I learned at 30. And it changed everything. Like, I went from a good coach and a good person to God took me. I hadn't even seen a palm tree at that time in my life. I always wanted to go somewhere on vacation because we didn't have any money. Now he's taking me to Africa, Asia, Europe, Central America, South America, Hawaii, multiple times, all basketball, all free, all talking about Jesus. And then, it's just like, it's not fair no more. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'll tell you exactly. I'm not going to hide the secrets. They're here. I'll tell you right now. I'll give you all I got. But I don't know why they're blind. Not everybody is. You guys aren't, but we are often, blind and deaf.
Donnie, if you could have one conversation with one of your former teammates or players or coaches, what would you say to them?
I talked to David Finch, who died in prison. He was a guy who would have my back and kill somebody for me. And he was tough as nails. Indian guy that played for me with John Brown, and I could just throw a ball. 50-50 ball, he was going to go get it. It didn't matter. And like, he for some reason loved me. And I reached out to him a couple times, before he passed away, and tried to talk to him about Jesus and stuff like that. But I would have tried harder to tell him how awesome Jesus is, and like he would do this, and then all of a sudden he would go back in. He was such a fearless guy. People like that are so amazing. When they get on fire for God, they'll kill it, but then all of a sudden they may fall because they're so fearless to be over here as well. And Satan sometimes will get them, they'll hurt a friend or something like that, and then they'll lose faith in God for a while. And I'm like, I have a lot of good friends that are like, man, they can win the world because they are so amazing, fearless and stuff like that. And I've watched Satan go after some of them. And it just makes me so mad. And then he goes after a child, or, that's Satan. He's just such a dang loser, He's a guy with zero zero love. It's all the opposite of that. And so, like, don't try to win what the world thinks is great, because you're never going to find joy and love and peace. And, as soon as you've realized, I have a chaplain on my team now who, I recruited him. He come to my office out of high school, as an all-stater. I looked at him and I'm like, Bobby, I don't think you're living for God right now, and I don't think you're a good fit for our program right now. And I didn't realize a month later he was going to go to prison for 10 years, drug bust. And I didn't even know he did. Well, I've gone 10 years to SAG for 6 years, and then I come back. So 10 years later, I'm going to play. I'm 50 years old. I'm playing in my last basketball league, right? It's a draft only league here in town. And so you don't know who your teammates are going to be. You show up, I've got a green jersey, and this guy walks in, dreads, muscled up. And I'm like, wait, that's Bobby Wade. Like, wow. Because when I saw Bobby Wade in front of me, I saw a kid that I could tell was not doing right. This time he's dreaded up and everything. And he walks up to me. He goes, remember me, coach? And I'm like, wow. I said, I don't think I do. I said, because you're not the same Bobby Wade I knew. Like, he was a completely different person, though. And he's like, Coach, I got out of prison like last week. He goes, but I got 3 Bible degrees, and I'm a rapper now. And I found God in prison, Coach. I said, man, would you come rap for us tomorrow night? Our team at that moment, we had to win the conference tournament. We won the tournament. And I'd been 18 straight national tournaments, and I was like, I didn't see it. Our team had just lost at Kansas Westland. I was like, we're done. We're toast. God, I'm going to break them one more time. If you don't build them back up stronger, we're done. I said, I need you to come to FCA tomorrow night. That practice on Tuesday was horrible. We're supposed to play on Thursday. We go to FCA Tuesday night. Bobby says, I don't talk, I just rap. I'm like, come on in, Bobby. He brought a friend that was with him in prison. And I get up and we sing a couple worship songs. And he gets up there. He kind of was looking back and stuff. He gets up there and he goes, I just got to tell you this. I've been in prison the last 10 years, and I was freer than what I see you guys, because you wouldn't even put your hands up in worship. I was like, wow, okay. He goes, drop that beat, Coach. Yeah, I dropped the beat, and he starts rapping his story, and I just closed my eyes, and I could just feel the Holy Spirit come into place, and just when I opened my eyes, my guys are all up doing this. Hey, that was the year we didn't lose another game until COVID shut us down. We won 5 straight. It was like I could not fix my team, and God simply filled him with power and spirit, and just let him hear Bobby. And he's still my chaplain. He's now a rapper and does great, and he's got some songs out. I got a Christmas song out, and stories like that. That's championships. I got one more. I had a young man. We won 39 straight. I told you, NEI record under 2020, but we just won the national championship. We're even better the next year, and we just won a 39 consecutive game. And my dad, I walked up to him, and he said he's peeing blood. I find out he's got cancer. We go and lose a double overtime game. I lose my sixth man to a broken foot. My best player goes down with a hurt ankle. We lose in double overtime. The fans follow us out to the bus yelling overrated as we're driving off. This is all the same weekend. I'm like, God, this is another pit. I haven't seen one in a while. But man, this one's deep, And I get back, and my seventh man, which is a really good player, he gets busted for smoking marijuana. And as the one kid I took a chance on, because his dad came in and says, Coach, he's not that kind of kid. He shouldn't have. I talked to his high school coach, and I took a chance, and I was like, golly. And for 10 years, I was like, stinking corn. I mean, because we would have won it all. We got beat in the semifinals by 1 point, even without our bench. And I'm like, stinking corn. I bet I said that 100 times. And I got a Facebook request from Cornelius Donnell. And I'm like, wow. And I open the message, and it says, Coach. And it has a picture of him and his beautiful family. He's in the ministry. And he says, everything changed because of my time there, Coach. I'm so sorry for what happened. But this is why I am who I am today. And I'm sitting there going like, national championship. No, that's even better. That's 1,000 times better than any national championship I could have. Was sitting there looking and saying like stinking corn. Instead, it was like glorious corn, man. Everything changed in that moment, And I didn't even know that. How many in heaven we're going to get to see, people we touched that touched other people if we're willing to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
Donnie, the last thing we like to do with our guests is we call it final words or words of life. And so I just want to give you a moment to share with our guests some final words, and then Austin will follow that, and then I'll close us.
it's better than you even believe it could be. Greater than you can dream or imagine. Worth more than gold, more than any championship. Don't seek and chase. I got everything I thought I wanted when it come to like All American, national championships, all that stuff, and nothing, none of that brought happiness. You always talk about the journey, and the players enjoy that way more than they remember. You know who won a championship in 1987 or whatever, and if you'll learn to seek Him first, all things are on the table.
Mm.
All things, and then if you do it with all your heart, He says, like it becomes anything becomes possible.
Mm.
And He takes the nobodies. He takes Peter, James, John, and these fishermen and these other guys that were nobodies. And I'm a nobody. If I can do anything worthy of what God, like He can use anybody, anybody. And he's hopefully He's talking to you right now. If you'll just put your heart after Him, seek Him how you can. I'm not a great reader, so I love to lift messages. Then I learned to study and just go into reading, figuring things out. You don't have to like start in Genesis and read all the way through, but you can dig into the Bible constantly and find out. Or if you like to read, do that. Go after people and people like Reinhard Bonnke and study his life. Look at people that are on fire for God and see what they're, what makes them tick. I'd read his biography, I think would be one thing I would suggest to do. Men who somehow overcame all attacks from the enemy when it comes to like giving up or falling. David, he's one of my heroes, and he fell twice. I don't think everybody knows his first fall was obviously Bathsheba, but his second fall was he was not able to discipline his kids, and his boys were, because of that, he went through a lot of struggle. And Tamar, and that story of he didn't do his job when it came to that, and thus his son I was really frustrated with him, and ended up taking over. And those stories are really sad, but as much as I love David, my dad was David, and he would say, "Son, the same thing I'm going to tell my kids, like, learn from my mistakes. I've made a lot of them. We're none of us are perfect, but if you can just look and try to learn from people's mistakes, and be a better version of your dad, and try to be the best image of Christ on that." I just, like I said, that football player, Mendoza, looks like a homeschool high school guy to me whenever they're interviewing him last night, and all he carried, he's just screaming God like Tim Tebow. But then if God's not going to use Tim Tebow, He's going to use, it's funny, if you don't listen to Tim Tebow, then He'll raise up a Ray Lewis. And they can't tell Ray Lewis to be quiet. He's going to pull his chest open and says, "No, no weapon," on his chest. And then he wins the state, the national championship, or the Super Bowl, and starts screaming about God. So use sports, use music, use whatever you love, whatever your gift is, and just give it to God and watch Him do something crazy with it.
Donnie, I think the word that I would use to describe you in just our hour and a half is you're different, which is one of the highest compliments I could possibly give, because it's a testament to someone who is, one, in relationship with our Heavenly Father, someone who is sold out. You might be one of the clearest pictures of what I think my dad and I's heart is with this ministry, of truly combining who we are in Christ, our identity, with being passionate about a sport that we play and a coach, and letting those two be one, not trying to be a coach over here and then a Christian over here. you're just, just in conversation, in every moment, whether it's on the floor or if it's in your everyday life, in the fourth watch, you're in relationship with God, and that affects everything else. It's not like you have to go do something different. You're living that life that he's described, because I see joy, I see contentment, I hear peace, you see people just in listening, and there's so much, the word that my dad was talking about that we've discussed over the last week from his conversation with you is hope in hopeless situations. I see hope, that there's favor out there waiting on us. So like we're like I said, we're putting on a thing called on earth as it is in heaven, and one of the things that God's shared with me over the last 2 years is, why can't, God's used prophets, God's used kings, God's used leaders, God's used all these different people to try or to work on bringing his kingdom, his way of life here on this earth. And what God put on my spirit one day is, why can't he do that with coaches and athletes? Because the opportunity for impact is out there. There's so many eyes on you, whether it's the stands, people in the stands watching the athletes or the coaches perform, or it's those intimate moments you have with your team that are looking to you in either a hopeful situation or a hopeless situation. And so listening to you, and even in your final words, the focus of find something you're passionate with and be in relationship with him, and watch what happens. That's how his kingdom comes on this earth. His way of living changes this world. And so I'm thankful for you and your life, because I think you are seriously in a journey of living that out. And I think that's the goal of all of us, as we're, because like you said, you were trying all these times to get a head coach your way. I've been in that such seasons, so I understand that frustration. But it's like God is preparing something in you, because he has great things in store for each of us that only him and I, or you and him, and or you and my dad, or everybody on this earth. He has a specific plan if we just participate with him. So I'm thankful for you in this conversation, because it encouraged my spirit. And I'm sitting here. I've listened to an echo the entire time, and for God to still bring such a powerful message speaks to the work he's doing in your life. So thank you, Donnie.
Donnie, I said it earlier in our time together, but you were placed in my life last or 2 weeks ago at the right time to share a real encouraging message to my heart that I've mulled over and will continue to mull over the last couple weeks. But when I listened to you today, like Austin, the word that came to my heart, another word that we talk a lot about in the ministry, was union. And I really could sense the union that you have with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. And that is what all of us have. And to see what it looks like to live from that, not strive for it, but live from that, and all that God does in each of our lives and our little pockets of community that we live in. And I really sense, as Austin said as well, I really sense the relationship you have with Papa and the way that you're able to encourage others with that. The other thing that jumped out that you shared is the ability to see. And I think all three of us have talked about this. The walk with Christ really has a lot to do with the way we see. One of the things that we talk about is a quality of a kingdom coach is they have the ability to see through a performance and recognize growth, because whether we have a bad or good performance, we know we're always growing. And that takes one that has those eyes to see. And I sensed, as you shared today, God continues to give you the eyes to see what he really is about, that there is nothing impossible with him. And then the third piece that I would say is a challenge. It's a challenge to me in my life, because the way I was brought up in my faith, some of the things you shared, I would have said, there's no way. He's got to be exaggerating that. But where God is continuing to take me is there is nothing impossible with him. And so your heart has stretched my heart today to places that I no longer keep God in a box, but places that maybe I haven't experienced to the degree that I'm able to. And so I appreciate those text messages that you send me at 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, and have listened to them, and am looking at how to incorporate that into my life at that time. So thank you for taking time to allow Austin and I to share your story with our listeners today at Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time.